The NBC television network invites you to look here. This is the oldest boxing gym in the country, Stillman's Gym, off 8th Avenue, just a few blocks down from Madison Square Garden. Through these ropes have come and gone most of the great heavyweight champions of the past: Johnson, Dempsey, Tunney, Braddock, Lewis, and Marciano. For many, the dream of becoming the champ starts in childhood.
Good afternoon, I'm Martin Agronsky. Welcome to Look Here. Beside me here is Floyd Patterson, the heavyweight champion of the world. Afternoon, Floyd. What are these future heavyweights? What are their names, Floyd?
This is definitely something wrong.
Definitely something wrong. How?
And this is Geronimo.
Geronimo. Right.
This is Albert.
Oh, Albert. How come he's only Albert?
Well, he hasn't been with us too long, and I have to be around the kids for a certain amount of time before I can feel out a name for him.
He hasn't got a name.
Well, Albert is his name, but Albert has a nickname. This is Satan.
Glad to know you, Satan.
This is number one son because of his eyes. That's what we call him.
Good to see
This is Mr. Obinsky.
Glad to know you, kid. Floyd, who are these boys?
These are some kids. They all live in Greenwood Lake, where I train, mostly whenever I'm in training. And sometimes I make special trips, even when I'm not in training, to go up and train them.
Neighborhood kids are just teaching how to fight. Why are you training them to be boxers, Floyd? What does boxing training do for them?
Well, I feel that a kid must be able to defend himself if he likes to fight. Like these kids, they like it very much. So who knows, they may even become a champion in the future.
Do you think you've got a potential champion there?
Well, if they were able to box, it's too bad they're not. You'll see what I mean. They really have something.
What does it do in terms of their character? Do you have any feeling about that?
Yes, we'll take, for instance, some time back, a kid came to me and asked me one afternoon by himself. I guess he heard that I was training other kids. And he asked me how was chances of me teaching him how to fight. But at that particular time, to me, he was just another kid. So I took him into the gymnasium, and he's been with us ever since, and he's here today.
One of these youngsters.
Yes, and to get back to what I was saying, his mother came to me about 2 weeks after I had him. She came to me and told me how the kid was, how confused he was, and backwards and everything, and he couldn't get along in school, not even at home. And she said since the last 2 weeks, which he had been with me for that time, that he's changed and showed a tremendous improvement. She even wanted to pay me. I thought that was, well, it made me feel kind of good to know that what I was doing for the kid took that kind of an effect. And that was something similar to the way I was when I was his age.
Well, were you shy and lonely when you were a kid, Floyd? I mean, was that part of the pattern? You want to look after these kids?
Well, I know I was shy, but I wouldn't say altogether lonely. But I was shy, and I just didn't like to be around people. I don't know what the reason was. Maybe it was just that I couldn't get along with them, or I just didn't feel like being around people.
Did you have an unhappy childhood? Is that what you mean?
Well, my family came from a very, very poor neighborhood in Brooklyn. And it's very hard for a kid my age then to come out of the neighborhood and make something out of himself. And that's the way it is with all the other kids there. Of course, there used to be gang wars and everything else, and it was very difficult to keep out of trouble.
I mean, tough on the street. Did you ever get in any trouble yourself, Floyd?
Yes, I have been in trouble, yes.
What sort of trouble?
Well, for one thing, I did not like school. I used to play hooky all the time, and I used to be with the wrong group of fellas. Boy, I used to hang out with. We used to play hooky together, and he would even encourage it. And I didn't like school to begin with, and we would steal fruit, snatch fruit from the fruit stands and things like that.
You ever get arrested?
Oh, yes, I was caught a few times.
What happened to you?
Well, I was sent to the youth house a couple of times when I was caught by a truant officer for playing hooky and jumping the turnstile in the subway and different things like that. Yeah.
Tell me, Floyd, in other words then, before you ever entered your teens, I suppose you're what we call now a juvenile delinquent in a sense. You were a constant truant. You ran away. You got involved in petty crime, at least. What was it then that put you straight? Was it boxing? What put you straight?
Boxing helped, but actually, it came to a point where my mother had to send me away. So she sent me to a school called Wiltwyck.
Wiltwyck?
Not Warwick, Wiltwyck. A lot of people get that mixed up.
Where is it, Floyd?
That's up in Esopus, New York, near Kingston. And it was there that I changed. The school really changed me. And when I got out, I became a fighter, and I followed the same pattern, and that helped even more.
You wanted to get out of your environment, was that it? I mean, you felt...
Yes.
The school made you realize how far off the track you were getting? Was that the way that you felt about it? You felt you out of the environment. Well, why did you choose fighting, though, to get out of your environment? It seems a very strange kind of a choice. What did you like about fighting?
Well, after experiencing the bad side of life and then experiencing some of the good side, which includes boxing and a great deal of other things, why I like that much better. And plus the fact I've always wanted to be a fighter because I'm an idol of Joe Louis. He's my I really idolize him. And I used to watch him, pictures of it in different magazines and whatnot. And then after I had gotten out, and I have two older brothers that were fighters. They used to go back and forth from Cuss's Gymnasium. That's my manager today. And I went along with them. I used to admire the way they hit the speed bag and the heavy bag and jump rope. None of these things I could do then. And it really just gave me a feeling, a good feeling.
In terms of character, did it do anything for you? I mean, a good feeling in terms of admiring the physical dexterity and the skill, but what did it do for you as a human being?
Well, it made me feel more like a man.
Like a man?
Yes, I would say.
Well, do you have to be a fighter to be a man? I mean, I don't quite get that. I couldn't punch my way out of a paper bag, I don't think.
Well, you don't have to be a fighter to be a man, actually. But to me, it made me feel like a man, to get around, to fight, to meet different people, and really feel like somebody. And the public really have made me feel like somebody. And but really, though, you don't have to be a fighter because I have a boy now that comes back and forth from the camp with me, trains every day, but he does not want to be a fighter.
How old is this kid?
He's about 10 years old. He does not want to be a fighter. I have tried everything, but every time I put the gloves on him and get ready to let him box, he would shake. He was very nervous. He never told me that he didn't want to be a fighter, but I could see it. So he's happier now just coming down and being around the other boys and being able to associate with them without having to box them.
And you're not going to push him into anything. I mean, if he doesn't want to be a fighter, it's all right.
He wants to be a doctor.
Wants to be a doctor. Well, that's another way of being a man. Tell me, Floyd, talk about your fighting and yourself as the champion, but every sports writer remarks on how you're what's known as a fearless fighter. How you actually are able to fall asleep just before a fight. Is that true? I mean, can you actually do that just before you go in the ring, lie down, go to sleep like that?
Well, I think if any fighter or any person lies down for a certain amount of time, like I do in the dressing room, of course, I only have to lay there for maybe 5-10 minutes. But I think if anybody lies down for a certain amount of time without thinking and relaxing, will fall asleep.
Well, how do you stop thinking when you're going to go into the ring? I mean, how do you rid yourself? Don't you have any fear at all? Do you have any nervousness, no anxiety?
Of course, there's a certain amount of nervousness and whatnot. But I think that comes from whether or not I'm going to win or lose the fight. However, I'm still able to fall asleep. And like I said before, I think anyone can do it. without even concentrating on it. Just lay down and relax the mind. That's all. And we
You
can
have to go into yogi to do it. I'm sure I couldn't do it, Floyd. Tell me this, if you're not afraid, are you, in the sense, I mean the sense of getting hurt, don't you ever fear getting hurt? Do you ever worry about that?
Well, I have never worried about it, although whenever I kneel in the ring and make the sign of the cross, a lot of people think that I'm asking God to give me more power to win the fight. But actually, when I kneel and make the sign of the cross, I'm doing it, if it's God's will, so that the both of us can come out of the fight in good shape.
You mean you and your opponent?
Yes.
You don't want to hurt anybody?
No.
You don't want to make them feel afraid or anything?
No.
Uh-huh. Well, let me ask you this, Floyd. Basically, I'm rather surprised to hear you say that you pray for another fighter not to be hurt, pray for yourself not to be hurt. I would think that basically boxing was a pretty brutal business, really. Men get killed in the ring, for that matter. They're killed every year in professional boxing. You yourself sent Hurricane Jackson to the hospital when you fought him. Don't you have to be a brutal man to be a fighter?
No, I wouldn't say so. In fact, I disagree with you. People get killed in all sports, skiing, football, and everything. I would say boxing was a very skillful thing for a youngster to do. I mean, you don't know, but if you was a fighter yourself, you would see what I mean. And I'm pretty sure all the other fighters understand what I mean. Like, for instance, I may get into the ring, and you don't get in there just going in there and use power for power. You actually have to outsmart the other man. It requires a great deal of mental work.
Are you telling me that boxing is a science, that it takes more brains and muscle, more brains and brawn? Is that what you're saying?
Definitely.
How does it work? How do you use your head, your brains in the ring? I mean, give me an example.
Well, to show you how difficult it really is, we'll take myself, for instance, and someone else. In boxing, let's say my opponent throws a left jab and a right hand. And he throws it, every time he throws it, I notice there's a small opening, see?
Where you can counter-punch?
Yeah, I can counter-punch,
yeah,
and perhaps even knock him out if not hurt him.
Boxing term.
See, he's using boxing terms, yeah. So after seeing him do it so many times, then I wait patiently for the right opportunity, and he does it again, and then I counter. But at the same time, that could just be a trick.
You mean he's trying to suck you in?
Suck me in, and then I may wind up on the canvas instead of him, just to show you how scientific it is.
Well, how do you determine that? I mean, what's the science of determining whether he's inviting you in for a sucker punch or not?
Well, sometimes you have to be smart enough to think beyond that. Instead of doing what would look to be the more logical thing to do something else.
Do something else.
So maybe he's expecting you to throw a right hand. He's leaving the opening for a right hand. Instead of throwing the right hand, moving to another position and throw a complete different punch. That will surprise him.
Well, what do you watch when you're in there, actually in the ring, and you're facing a man and you're boxing with him? What do you watch? I notice I've watched you in action. You have your hands up here like this, sort of covering your chin and your face, and you never seem to look at the man that you're fighting. What are you looking at when you're in the ring?
I watch the chest, just about here, about here.
The breastbone?
Yeah, the breastbone.
What do you get out of watching the breastbone? I mean, I don't understand.
Well, by watching in that section, in and around this section here, whenever he gets ready to throw a left hook or a right hand, the muscles sort of tense before he throws the blow or turns in that particular direction. And that's how I know it.
You mean that telegraphs the coming punch? Is that
telegraph, in other words.
Well, do you ever watch a man's eyes? I would think that by watching his face, you could do. If you watched his eyes and he looked just before he threw a punch, wouldn't that tell you anything? Don't you ever look at his face?
Well, I think more fighters watch the face than watch the breast. I have never watched the face, so actually I couldn't tell you. But I think But the reason why they watch the eyes is because before the opponent throws the punch, he sort of shows some sort of an expression in his eyes or twisting of the lips of some kind, I believe.
But you never try to do that. Don't you ever look at a man's face?
No.
No conditions at all?
Well, I look at a man's face sometimes after I've caught him with a very good punch. And if his knees aren't wobbly, I generally look up to his face. And sometimes a man can be seriously hurt and his knees aren't wobbly, but his eyes are glassy and sometimes bloodshot and whatnot.
And you can tell then that he's ready for a knockout punch,
Yeah.
is that it?
Mm-hmm.
That would be the only time you'd actually look at his eyes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
How about his feet? Does that do any good? You say his knees are wobbly. Now, I watch some fighters seem to go around, I was watching some of these fellows in here looking at their feet. What's the point of that?
Well, sometimes when you have your opponent hurt, in fact, most of the times, he's like a drunken man. His legs get real wobbly as if he can't hold himself up. And that's how you can another way of telling. In fact, I would rather see that way than see the eyes. Then I really know I have him in trouble.
Yes. Tell me this, you say that it is not a brutal sport, that it's a science. Actually, Floyd, you get into the ring, is the opponent then just another body? Is he a human being to you? How do you feel, for instance, when you cut a man up if he's bleeding? Does it do anything to you, does it?
Well, sometimes if I'm really ahead on the fight and my opponent's eyes is possibly cut wide open, like I remember I had a fight a long time ago where I had hit my opponent and you can actually see the meat hanging over the eye.
Yeah.
The referee didn't stop the fight that round, but he did the next round. When I was leading in points, I was so far ahead of him that I didn't find it necessary to hit him in the eyes anymore.
What'd you do, just carry him, you mean?
I switched to the body. Well, I threw this hard punches at him. I mean, I wasn't what you might call carrying him, but I just didn't find it necessary to hit him in the eye. Where it could have been avoided, who knows? Maybe if I had concentrated on the eye, when it really wasn't necessary, I might have been causing someone to lose their career.
You might have blinded him.
I'd have blinded him, yeah.
Well, then you actually feel, now this is an extraordinary thing to hear a heavyweight champ say that it is not a brutal business, that it's a science, and that you don't want to hurt a man. I've always had the impression the idea was to hurt a man in the ring, to knock him out. You tell me it isn't. Now, can you tell me this? How do some fighters then bring themselves to hit a man when they know that he's hurt? You say you wouldn't do that.
Well,
Are other fighters like that?
Some fighters are, but I think all in all, practically all of the fighters think the same as I do. If they have a man really ahead on points and they've only got so many rounds to go, and he has a deep gash somewhere that may cause his career or even his eyesight, why go at it? Why try to blind the man? I mean, you're going to win anyway, so I think all in all of them think just about the way I do.
I certainly don't advocate blinding. I'm just surprised to hear that a professional fighter feels that way. Well, tell me this then, Floyd, if you hold back, you don't cut a man up, hurt him badly, at least try not to, don't you lack then what they call in the fighting business the killer instinct?
Yes, they have said that, but the main thing to me is to keep winning. As long as I can keep winning, that's good enough for me.
You don't want to
like I said, this is a sport. I mean, a lot of people look at it as not a sport, but the fighters themselves, when they get in there and box each other, whether it's in training or in a real fight, I have seen some fights where two guys, I mean, they got into the ring and you'd think they had been enemies for life and they were going for each other the way they fought. But after the fight was all over, they put their hands around each other as if nothing has happened with the blood. Maybe one fighter was bleeding from the eyes, the other one's got a busted lip and all broke up. They put their hands around each other, pat each other on the shoulder, and it's all over. So I think that should be a strong point indicating that the fighters look at it as just a sport.
Well, you say it isn't a brutal sport and that they all look at it that way. I'm prepared to accept that. I know nothing about fighting. But tell me this, do you consider boxing a clean sport?
Well, I will say one thing. The two fighters in the ring fighting are clean.
The two fighters are clean?
Yes.
The implication of that, of course, is that a lot of people outside the ring aren't.
Well, you'll have to put that together any way you want it, but I can vouch for the fighters in the ring.
How about the managers, the promoters, trainers?
Well, I know I have, to me, the best manager in the business. And, of course, they have other good managers and they have other good trainers and other good promoters.
All right, Floyd. Tell me this, do you think there are any crooks in the business? Crooked fighters?
Well, let me put it to you this way. There are some fighters that really depend on boxing, like myself, for instance. They have a family, and they really depend on boxing, and they go all out for boxing and boxing itself. They don't have a job or anything else. And sometimes they can be put into a position whereas either they do or they don't get any more fights, see? But of course, if things were different, then they wouldn't have to be put in these kind of positions, but naturally, if a fighter is put in that position, he's got to consider his family or die, which is more important.
Well, I don't know. That's a pretty tough one to take. You think a man would consider his family and he would die.
True.
Have you ever been faced with a situation like that?
No, I have never been faced with that sort of situation because everybody knows Cuss for his honesty and everything, and they know that I have been with Cuss from the beginning, and I have never indicated in any kind of way that anything wrong towards boxing. So, and we have been independent from the beginning on. So I don't think anybody, knowing Cuss and myself, would ever approach me with anything such as that.
I won't insult you by asking you, Floyd, if you've ever taken a bribe. I wonder if anybody has ever attempted to approach you for a bribe. You say that that has never occurred. Now, has there never been anything at all in that?
Well, it's never happened.
It just has never happened.
Not to me, no.
Floyd, tell me this. Boxing has the reputation of being overrun with gangsters, with crooked managers, gamblers. You say a boxer can stay clean. I wonder, how can he stay clean in a sport like that? You outlined a situation where a man might take a dive. Suppose you have a clean fighter, and a hood, a gangster, comes to him and says, look, you're going to lose this fight in such and such a round, or it is going to be your family. How can a business stay clean where things like that can happen?
Well, these things happen, but they don't happen to everybody. I can take myself, for instance. I was lucky. I managed to get the right kind of a manager. That's dependent. In other words, he's by himself. He's independent. And he feels that if, the same as I do, that if a fighter should get to the top, or is a good fighter, he should get a good break. So he has been that way from the beginning. So he was able to outsmart lots of people, different people, in order to get me the proper fights, in order to get me to the top. But sometimes most fighters around the minute they show showing some kind of indications that they're a good fighter, why they automatically becomes
The crooks come around.
well, I don't know how to put it,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to say the crooks come around, but certain people come around, and then the fighters.
Well, then he's got no alternative then but to get out of the business or go to the cops. And what happened?
Well, like I said before, go to the cops.
Go to the cops.
For what?
Yeah. Tell me this, Floyd. How does your wife Sandra feel about your fighting?
Well, my wife doesn't want me to fight, not because of all this crooked stuff that you're talking about, but she doesn't want me to fight because she feels someday she may have to come face to face with me taking a terrific beating.
She doesn't
And she
want you.
hopes so, yeah. And she
can't
won't let
blame
me
her for
quit
that.
before then.
It seems to me that to be a champion requires requires a great deal of dedication, if not self-sacrifice, really, Floyd. You keep constantly in training without let-up, I mean, as you do. Deny yourself all the ordinary pleasures that most of us really take for granted. And I'm curious, with all these demands on you, really, to stay in top shape and ready to defend your title, how much time do you have to spend with Sandra, with your new daughter, to enjoy life?
Well, that's the only hard part about it, is the sacrifice of being away from my family. But this year, I don't believe I was on 2 months out of the whole year.
2 months out of the year?
Yeah. I spend all of my time in camp, even when I don't have a fight on. When I started the fight with Jackson, I started training in February. And I don't think I've spent 2 months home this year. That's the only hard part about it. Every time I see my daughter, it looks like something new. It looks like she's gotten much bigger and so many changes. But
a man has to be dedicated, really, to prepare to be champ, to win the championship, to stay champ, really.
yeah.
You got to be willing to make those sacrifices. Floyd, you said that the main reason you wanted to box, really, was to move your family out of the old environment. You are the champ now, and what's your next goal? What do you intend to do when you retire from the ring?
Well, I would like very much to own a farm somewhere upstate New York. I'd like to raise a very large family along with a few horses.
A very large family. How large?
20, no less
20
than
kids.
20, yeah.
What do you want to have 20 kids for? How are you going to ever...
I realize my wife is not going to have 20 kids for me, but she's going to have as many as she possibly can, and then I intend to adopt the rest.
Adopt them for what reason? To give them the same kind of a chance that you can give them now?
Well, I'd like to adopt them to give them the same, for what I couldn't get when I was that age. I would like to give them the chance. Of course, having all these things and not sharing them with someone else.
Thank you, Floyd. Floyd Patterson, age 22, is the youngest man to become the heavyweight champion in the history of boxing. He's a prodigy. More important, he wears his crown with the dignity that the title demands. Good afternoon.